Hello. Let me start with a simple question today. What would happen if you couldn't work tomorrow? If you became seriously ill? If you gave birth? If you became permanently disabled? Or when you eventually retire, where would your income come from? For most working people, income stops when work stops. That is exactly why Namibia has a social security system, to provide protection when life interrupts your ability to earn. It is based on a simple idea: social insurance. Now, in such a system, employers and employees contribute small amounts into common funds. When someone faces a serious interruption in income, the system pays benefits from those pooled contributions. That protection exists because we have in Namibia the Social Security Act of 1994. Just to go back for a second, after independence, Namibia introduced new labor and social protection laws designed to improve the lives of workers and their families. Part of this effort is the Social Security Act. It's a companion to the Labor Act. The Act established several funds financed by contributions from employers and workers and administered by the Social Security Commission. These funds include the Maternity, Sick, and Death Benefits Fund, known as the MSD Fund, which is currently operating, the Development Fund, which is also operational, the National Pension Fund, which is now being prepared to be brought into operation, and the National Medical Benefit Fund, which remains in the planning stages. There is also another important law administered by the Social Security Commission, the Employees' Compensation Act. That law deals specifically with workplace injuries and occupational diseases. We will examine that law and the benefits under it separately in the next episode. Now, you may be wondering, what exactly is the Social Security Commission? It is a public institution, or also called a public enterprise, created by law. Its responsibility is to manage and invest Social Security funds and to ensure that benefits are paid when members qualify. It has a tripartite governance structure, meaning workers, employers, and government are all equally represented. That's why they say tripartite, all three. So the system reflects a balance of interests, not just one group. The Commission has offices and a staff across Namibia to assist members. Now, participation in Social Security is not optional. If you are an employer in Namibia or an employee earning a basic wage, even if you work only one day in a week or are a temporary employee or a part-time employee, the Act applies to you. Every employer, now I want to emphasize employers because it's the employer's responsibility. The registration is the employer's responsibility. Every employer is required by law to register with the Social Security Commission as an employer and to register its current employees as members, as well as all new members when they begin working. Both employers and employees are required by law to contribute to Social Security. Contributions begin with the employee's first month of employment. We'll get into those details in a minute. The Commission keeps a record of contributions for each employee. This ensures that if an employee changes jobs, their contributions remain credited to them. Now, there's a 6-month waiting period for newly registered members before benefits become payable, even though you start making the contributions from the beginning. However, if you change jobs and registration continues, that waiting period does not have to start again. You can carry your benefits from one job to another. In fact, within a 6-month period. Now, let us focus specifically on the Maternity, Sick, and Death Benefits Fund, which I will refer to as the MSD Fund. This is the fund that most workers encounter on a day-to-day basis. For each employee, the employer and the employee must make an equal monthly contribution to the MSD fund. Each contribution is an amount equal to 0.09% of the employee's basic wage, making a total contribution for both the employer and employee of 1.8% of the employee's basic wage per month. Self-employed persons, if they wish to be covered by Social Security, may pay the full 1.8% themselves as employer and employee. Contributions are calculated within a defined wage range. The minimum wage basis for a calculation is $500 per month. And the maximum is $11,000 per month. What this means is, if you make less than $500 a month, the contribution for an employee making $500 a month will still be 0.09% of their basic wage. If their basic wage is $500, the contribution is $4.50 per month. The maximum employee contribution that can be made to Social Security is based on a wage basis of $11,000. That is $99 per month. Now, whatever the employee contributes, the employer matches it. If an employee makes more than $11,000 a month for the purpose of making Social Security contributions, they only count the first $11,000. So the contribution is a percentage of 0.09% of the $11,000. For both workers and employers, the monthly contribution therefore ranges from a minimum of $4.50 to a maximum of $99 per person per month. You'll see it's worth it in a minute. In return, the system provides wage replacement during maternity up to a ceiling, extended income support during serious illness, and a lump sum benefit in cases of death, disability, or retirement. Social Security is not a private insurance company, and for this reason, it is able to provide meaningful benefits for relatively modest contributions because there are no shareholders who would take profits from the system. Whatever is contributed is put into a pool, and it only is there for the payment of the benefits and modest expenses to operate the system. The contributions are pooled in a public fund and invested to ensure that the benefits can be paid whenever any member needs them. In simplest terms, many people contribute small amounts so that no one is left behind without support when life takes an unexpected turn. That is the essence of social insurance. Now, let us turn to the first benefit, maternity benefit. The maternity benefit provides 100% of basic wage up to a ceiling of $15,000 per month. What that means is if a worker has been a member of Social Security for 6 months and their contributions are up to date, they will get 100% of their wages replaced up to a maximum of $15,000 per month. It will be based on whatever your basic wage is. It is normally payable for 12 weeks, 4 weeks before the baby is born and 8 weeks after birth. In certain medically certified cases, the benefit could be extended up to a maximum of 16 weeks. If a member earns more than $15,000 per month, the benefit is capped at that ceiling of $15,000. To receive the maternity benefit, the employee must submit the claim not later than 7 days before the expected date of birth and submit supporting documents within 7 days after the birth. The claim forms are official claim forms which can be submitted at Social Security offices, or they can be obtained and submitted online. Now, the next benefit is a sick leave benefit. You remember that we talked previously about certain sick leave that workers are entitled to under the Labor Act. This benefit picks up where those benefits left off. It was contemplated as a benefit for extreme or serious illness that goes on for a long period of time. Extended sick leave benefits apply only after the employee has used up the 30 working days of paid sick leave provided for under the Labor Act, or if they have a contract of employment that gives them more sick leave where they've used up that amount. In addition, to be eligible for this extended sick leave, the employee must be medically certified as being incapable of work for at least 30 consecutive days. This benefit applies only to non-work-related illness. For an example could be HIV, for example. If the illness or injury arises out of and in the course of employment, in other words, if it is a workplace injury or an occupational disease, the matter falls under the Employees' Compensation Fund, under the Employees' Compensation Act, not the MSD fund. Once the Labor Act sick leave has been exhausted, the MSD fund may provide income support for up to 2 additional years, provided that the statutory conditions are met. So it's a valuable benefit for seriously ill people. For the first 12 months, the benefit is in an amount of 75% of the employee's basic wage, up to a ceiling of $15,000. What this means is 75% of $15,000 or $11,250 per month. That is what an employee can get when they receive this extended sick benefit. In the second 12 months, the benefit will be 65% of basic wage, with the same ceiling of $15,000, which means they can get up to $9,750 per month. Where sick leave must be taken, remember, for at least 30 consecutive days, claim forms must be submitted to the Social Security Commission within 30 days after the time where the employee has exhausted paid sick leave under the Labor Act. Now, another benefit, which I'm going to talk about, is referred to in the Social Security Act as death benefit. I have decided to change informally the name of what Social Security Act refers to as a death benefit to death, disability, and retirement benefit. For this reason, a once-off lump sum of $12,000 is payable upon the death or permanent disability of a member or upon retirement. I can promise you that neither disability nor retirement is a death sentence. This is not a pension. It is a single payment intended to provide financial assistance at an important life moment. Claim forms must be submitted to the Social Security Commission within 30 days of the relevant event, and must be accompanied by the required supporting documentation. I want to emphasize the MSD fund does not cover workplace injuries or occupational diseases. These are dealt with separately under the Employee Compensation Act, and we'll be talking about them. The MSD fund protects against maternity and non-work-related illness. Work-related harm is under a separate legal framework. Before I conclude, I want to just mention some problems that may come up affecting benefits. Now, what happens if an employee paid their benefits, if the employer deducted them from the employee's salary, but then the employer did not pay them over to Social Security? Now, the employee, and this has happened, there are women who went to claim maternity leave, and they were told they were not entitled to maternity leave because contributions had not been paid for the minimum 6-month period. And they said, how could this be? The money was deducted from our pay. Well, it just turned out that their employer never sent it to Social Security. Now, I can say two things about that. One is that's a crime. An employer can be prosecuted for that. Secondly, if the employee can show that she made the contributions and they simply were not paid over, there's provision for the commission to provide that worker with the benefits, he or she. It's not just for maternity, it's for any benefit. All right, that's one kind of situation. Another situation is where there's a very specific one about maternity leave. If a pregnant woman has her employment terminated within 3 months of her delivery, right? The Social Security Act provides that the benefit can be paid if it had been paid up to the time when she was terminated. Similarly, if someone is fired and reinstated at a much later time, and they had a claim for Social Security, the Social Security will not require them to pay the contribution that wasn't made during that period of time when they were fired and before they were reinstated, but it will recognize that they were in continuous employment for the period of 6 months. If before they were terminated, the contributions had been paid up, the Social Security Commission can grant the benefit. Also, some people have been paying into Social Security and then they leave a job. They may immediately go to another job, or there may be some time before they go to that other job. Again, the Social Security Commission will allow them to carry that benefit. They won't have to pay extra money. They won't have to start over like a new waiting period. So if they had been in the system for 6 months, they go to another job, they can carry that benefit. That's called the period when they have not been working between the time they left employment and the new employment. That can be up to 6 months, and they can still carry that benefit. Today, we've looked at how Namibia's social security system works, how it was introduced after independence to improve the lives of workers and their families, and how the MSD fund provides protection during maternity, prolonged illness, death, disability, and retirement. We have seen that a relatively small monthly contributions can provide access to meaningful benefits when income is interrupted. But this is only part of our system. In our next episode, we will turn to the employee's compensation, the framework that applies when injury, occupational disease, disability, or death arises out of and in the course of employment. We'll examine how it works, what employers must do when workplace incidents or occupational illnesses occur, and what compensation may be payable to affected workers or their dependents. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and please share it with others who may benefit from understanding how Social Security works.